If you're a super hardworking player who wants to play D1 or pro more than anyone else you know, then you probably experienced this before. You're working super hard, you're doing what the coach asks, you're trying to be the best player you can be all the time, you're doing every little detail, and you're sacrificing pretty much all of your free time to play hockey. But there's one little problem. The coach is not playing you. You're not getting the minutes you feel like you deserve, you're not getting to play with the top guys, you're not getting PP time, and no matter how hard you work, no matter how hard you try to make an effort, nothing seems to make a difference. And the solution you might be thinking is, if you're in junior, you're college, or pro, you're probably saying, well, what if I ask for a trade? But of course, that's a tough call, because if you do ask for a trade and they don't trade you, you might end up just pissing the coach off more. You might end up with management who says, don't play this guy, we don't like him. So the question is, what do you do? This video is meant to be your guide for dealing with hard times with your coach, with your team, and how to mentally navigate these challenges and make the best possible decisions you can for long-term success in your career. And these are the exact same frameworks, pieces of advice, and tools and systems I've taught to hundreds of players who have played in the AHL, high-level pro leagues all across the world, Division I, high-level junior leagues. So these things work. I know they make a big difference, but I wanted to put them into one video so you have one place to come back to. I'm making this for both my clients and for players in the public, so that if your coach starts screwing you over, making your life hard, you have something you can come back to and use as a core tool and really a strategy to attack things. So we're going to go through several things in this video. The psychology behind why your coach is probably screwing you over right now, the mindset that I've taught all my pro, D1, high-level junior players to be able to deal with this situation, how to emotionally deal with the situation, because it's not just negative thinking, but it also feels bad, what actions to take to improve on your training and make sure that you keep getting better during this time, how to talk to your coach to give yourself the best chance of getting more ice time, getting more opportunities, and ultimately how to just set yourself up for long-term success. And so if you're ready, let's get into it. First, let's start with why your coach is doing this. So I want to be clear. The fact that you're frustrated about this is totally normal. This is a shitty situation. It sucks, and I get it. And my goal of this is not to make you feel like, oh, this doesn't matter, or this doesn't feel like an important thing, because it is. It does matter. When you're getting screwed over and you give your whole career, you give your whole life to hockey, the problem is that it puts you in a really tough spot when somebody's taking that away from you. And I've been there before. I've had this happen multiple times at multiple different levels, and I know every player feels this way at some point. And the big thing to realize from your coach's perspective is that sometimes they make terrible choices. By all means, like sometimes coaches just don't know what they're doing and they make stupid decisions, and it puts you in a tough spot, and you kind of have to deal with the ramifications of that. And by ramifications, I just mean you have to deal with, when they do something, you get hit with the problem. But if you can understand why they do what they do, it oftentimes helps you not suffer as bad, but it also oftentimes helps you just be smarter and deal with it and get better from it. And so I want to give you the coach's perspective on this so that you can think about, hey, maybe this is what he's thinking and what he's going through. And it might give you a little bit more kind of empathy. You might say, oh, okay, I get it. When he does this stupid thing, I get why he's doing it. Right? So the first thing you have to think about from a coach's perspective and the emotions and the challenges they're dealing with is that they have a win-loss record and they're getting judged by other people. So they have a boss, somebody who hired them on the team, who brought them in, and they need to perform. And the thing with coaches is that they have to get the team to win games. And so if their record sucks, the problem is that they get hit with the consequences of that. So the coach kind of ends up having a lot of this stuff fall on them in a lot of cases. And so you have to remember as a player that, yeah, you're going out and carrying out the execution, but the coach is the one who has to take the hit when the team is losing. The coach gets blamed for it. And it's kind of a mixed bag, right? It's kind of both people's fault. Keeping in your head, okay, they want to win and they need to win, and they have people who are putting pressure on them who are oftentimes paying them to do this. And this is something you have to keep in your head when they're losing their mind, they're getting frustrated. It's because they're scared they might lose their job. They're scared that they are going to fail and not succeed, and they've wasted all this time doing this coaching and they're not getting the benefit, right? Just like you as a player, you fear, what if I don't produce points? What if I don't play well? What if I don't get ice time? For them, it's like, what if I get fired, right? So you have to keep that in mind. The next thing you have to keep in mind is trust. Coaches, when they have this fear, they're not sure what to do. A lot of times coaches are going to fall back on, here's the person I trust. This guy's going to go out there and I know that they're going to execute the system. And sometimes you may say, hey, I think I'm better than that player. And maybe you are better. Maybe you have more skill, but they may have built more trust with that coach. This is why you're going to see players on teams for multiple years. You're going to see this kind of trust factor that comes in because these players have built a lot of trust with that coach. And now that coach says, hey, I don't know for sure they're going to be the best possible player, but I do know that the likelihood they succeed is going to help me because I know that if I put them out, they're not going to go like do something totally different than the system. So you need to build that trust with a team. This is why one of the mistakes I made earlier in my career was I thought it was a smart idea to not worry about what team I was on. And I asked for a trade after my rookie year in my 17-year-old year. So I played junior C in my first year as a 16-year-old just to get some experience instead of playing AAA. And then in my 17 year, I went and played junior B B, which is pretty close to junior A because the Goj is like, pretty close. The top teams definitely would compete and do well in the OJ. I'm sure I'll get hate in the comments for that. Core point is that when I made that jump, I ended up having a tough situation where the coach was awesome and then a new coach came in mid-season, and then I had to decide, like, what do I want to do? And I said, okay, I'm going to go and ask for a trade at the end of the season and go to a new team. Well, the problem is when you go to a new team, you now have to start to build trust all over again. And so one big thing to keep in mind is that when you do jump teams, if you do switch or you've moved somewhere else or whatever it is, just keep in your head that trust isn't necessarily there right away. Now, when it comes to communicating with coaches, we are going to talk about this more in depth. If you want to understand how to relate to your coach even better based on what type of coach they are, I do have a whole video that I will be releasing soon enough in the future, breaking down the 6 types of coaches that I've dealt with and I see tons and tons of players deal with. If you want me to release that video next and prioritize that, comment below something like coaches or make the coaches video, and I'll prioritize that and I'll make it next week. If not, I'll wait a little bit, but just let me know if that's something you're interested in learning more about, is how to deal with different coaches based on what the coaching archetype is that they have. And the next thing I want to get into is what's the mindset you want to have, right? You're always going to hear people say mindset, have a good mindset. But the way you want to think of this is mindset is really the way you perceive a situation. It's the way you look at something. I can look at a blank piece of paper and I can see it from the mindset of, oh, there's nothing there. What am I going to do? Or you can see it as there's an opportunity to create something awesome and I can make a product that changes 100 players' lives or 1 million people's lives through creating something on that piece of paper, right? It's the mindset you have going into it. Same thing as a hockey player. Every situation you go into, the way you're thinking about it, the way you kind of perceive it, the angle you look at it from is going to have a big impact on how you act towards it, what you do in the situation. So to simplify it down, a mindset is the lens you look through at a situation, and it's the story you tell yourself about what's happening. It's important to realize as we talk about what your coach is going through and we talk about whatever you're dealing with, you can't always control the system. You can't always control the weather outside, or you can't always control what position you get put in, but you can update the software in your head, the way you think about things, so that you don't get pulled in and get sad that it's raining outside. You don't get sad and disappointed and hate your life just because your coach didn't put you on the first line today. How you can start to do this, the kind of story you want to start to tell yourself is that I am not my hockey results. So what you want to start to think is detach yourself and your identity from your current role. If you're not in the position you want to be, or if you are, you need to attach yourself to growth trajectory. You need to say, I'm not who I am right now. I am who I'm growing into, and I'm on a growth path, and that's what I identify with. That's what matters to me, is my growth trajectory. When you shift your mindset to this, instead of looking at things and being scared, like, oh God, what am I going to do? I don't know if I'm going to succeed. I'm failing. I'm not getting opportunities. I'm not putting up points. You say, how am I growing? And you can zoom out and you can start to realize, okay, maybe this one situation is actually just a bad situation and it doesn't reflect who I am. Maybe you have a bad game. Maybe you don't score on one of the shots you take. It's not identifying with it. You don't say, I took a bad shot, I'm a bad shooter. Instead, if you miss a shot, you simply say, okay, how am I going to grow with that? That's your growth trajectory. Now, let's say you're getting benched right now. The perspective you want to have is, I'm not a bad player because I got benched. This might be I'm getting tested. It might be that the coach has all these different pressures and there's a reason why other players are going on. It might be he's just trying to test and see what other opportunities players might need in order to get a little better. Maybe he's trying to trade players. One of the crazy things I learned was sometimes coaches play a player that doesn't deserve to be in a certain position because they're trying to up their stats, make the player look better so they can trade them. And I had that happen where I had players get put in front of me and the coach straight up told me after, I wish he had told me during, but he told me after, hey, I'm doing this because I want to get rid of this kid and I need him to look better. So let me do this for a couple games, deal with it, and then I'll actually give you more opportunities than you had before. But he waited until like 5 games into doing that one time in junior, and I was like, what the is going on? And then he tells me that. And as a player, I think it's important to learn that lesson now, or at least have that perspective. Shift your mindset to, just because something bad's happening to me doesn't mean it's who I am. It doesn't mean it's because of me. And even if it is because of me, I can still get better. I can still improve on this if you see it as a test, as a challenge of your mental durability and your mental toughness. So the question becomes, can you still lead yourself when no one's watching? Can you still improve when you're having a bad time? So stop asking, why me? And start asking, what's the lesson I can take from this? What's the behavior change I can use? Can I take this, feel frustrated, use that frustration to drive me to work harder? Perfect. So you have to realize, to be unshakable as a player, to develop what I call an unshakable mindset, sounds kind of corny, but no, just to be mentally tough, essentially, you need to detach from your coach's opinion. If your coach says you suck, you have to be able to say, okay, why does he say that? Maybe there's other reasons. And you have to start to say, I don't attach myself to outcomes at all. If I don't get played today, if I don't have success in this shift or this period, I don't say I suck. I say, what's the lesson? How can I improve? If I get screwed over by the coach, coach, I can say, okay, what's the lesson? How can I improve? You reattach yourself to the process and the trajectory you're on. Whenever you're thinking about it, always go back to this concept of growth trajectory. You're always trying to grow forward, improve, and think about the trajectory you're on, because that's where our mind performs best, is when we see ourselves headed in a good direction. How you can do this is zoom out and think of this as a chapter in your career, not the whole book. Sometimes when we have a bad experience, we think this one moment is the only thing that's going to happen for the rest of my career. Our brains do that because they're not really wired to feel happy. They're wired to keep us alive. But we want to think this is a chapter, zoom in, see the chapter, zoom out, and then realize there's a whole book still left to be written in my career. And then the last piece is identity shift. Define yourself by who you're becoming, not how you're treated. Start to see it that way and things will start to change. So the goal is to move from I'm a victim to I'm a student of the system. I'm learning about how the hockey system works and I'm continuing to grow. That's how you're going to be successful. That's the mindset you want to have around this. So that's the thing to keep in mind. Trust matters. You got to build it. And if your coach isn't playing you, it may be just because he doesn't trust you yet, and you need to do things to build that. So keep in mind this idea of every time you have a good shift, every time you have a good period, every time you make a good play, trust is built. But then one really bad play can oftentimes kind of break that trust. And so you have to understand where you sit in the lineup, what your coach is expecting. And if your coach allows you to make mistakes, then you're allowed to. But if your coach says, hey, I need you to play safe, I need you to be smart, you need to figure this out, right? It's your job as the player to go and decide, hey, how much risk can I take? If you go and spend multiple games and build up that trust, and then you go and have a terrible game or you make a couple big mistakes, that can ruin all the good games you had because that coach says, man, I just don't know. The next thing you have to keep in mind is coaches are always dealing with politics. And a lot of times we hear this concept, and I as a player used to hear it all the time. I didn't really get what it meant fully. The way you can think of politics is it's the pressures you have from people like scouts who are saying, I want you to play this guy. Maybe there's a player who's already been offered a scholarship and he's going D1. And then those scouts or those coaches are saying, hey, I want you to play this guy more. He needs to be in this position. Maybe there's agents that are calling the coach and putting pressure on that coach to play certain guys, take certain guys out of positions. You have team management who's also telling the coach different information. And all these things are constantly influencing the coach's decision. It's not easy to be a coach. I haven't been a coach, but I've talked to a lot of coaches and I know that they go through a lot, and they don't get paid a ton of money unless you're like an NHL coach. You don't get paid like a crazy amount, and you have to deal with all these pressures, and you have to try to win. You have to deal with all these things going on and players coming to you. And then you have, again, like I said, scouts, agents, team management. You have assistant coaches with perspectives. You even have parents coming to you, and all these things are coming in. Maybe you have parents like paying the coach and trying to give them money, trying to bribe them, like things like that happen. And so you have to keep in your head, there's a whole interworking system that's happening, and you might not know exactly why or what is occurring. And so your ability to accept that, hey, maybe there's stuff that I just don't see that's happening, and that's why I'm not getting opportunities, and it will eventually come. I just have to be able to keep getting better while this is happening and not take it personally. We'll talk more about not taking it personally and identifying with it in a second, but that's the key piece to understand there. The next piece you have to keep in mind is player consistency, which essentially is just the trust concept, but you just have to think about yourself as how reliable am I? Because you can be very talented, but when a coach's job's on the line, he's going to play the players who are reliable. So doing the mental work to show up and be consistent is massive because you provide a lot of stability for that coach. You allow him to say, hey, regardless of what happens, I know I can rely on this player, you, to go out and do his job. I know it's going to happen. So as a player, just keep that in your head that the more consistent you can be, the more you can build up your mental skills so that even if you are having a tough day, you're stressed out about stuff, your coach benched you last game, if you can show up and be consistent the next game by being mentally dialed in, you are going to be a huge asset to that coach. And then the last piece you want to think about is that coaches also have a personal life. They also have stress from family, they have finances, they have their own career security they're keeping in their head. And so most of the time when they're making decisions, they're just thinking like, I have all this stuff going on. I just want to get these things out of the way. I'm stressed. I'm tired. Maybe they're hungry going into the rink. That's the stuff you have to keep in mind. And so every time a coach goes to the rink, every time you talk to them, you have to remember the decisions they're making, whether it's talking to you, whether it's putting you on the ice or taking you off, scratching you, whatever it is, they're not just trying to be fair to everybody. They're trying to manage risk and trying to figure out how they can navigate their own coaching career. So I'm not trying to say that every coach is awesome. They're all great. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that every coach is fair. I'm not saying that you should even expect fairness. What I'm saying is that there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that you just don't get. And I'm not trying to be that whole like adult who's like, oh, you're stupid, kid, you don't get it. What I'm trying to say is that you just have to keep these in mind whenever you're kind of getting wrapped up in how you're getting treated. Just keep this in your head that the coach is going through stuff too, just like you are. They're a human. And if you can start to relate to them that way, a lot of times the energy you give to them, the way you look at them, the way you talk to them, there's just a little bit less harshness there. You start to become a little nicer and you start to build a little bit better relationship with them. And through that, a lot of times you'll start to get more opportunities just because the coach likes you. They're like, this guy's nice. I like this guy. I want to put him on. He's a good kid. You want to earn that as well, not just, kiss their ass and just have coaches be like, oh, he's so kiss up and he's trying to make me feel good. No, like actually just be genuinely nice to them. And a lot of times that'll just genuinely help you. And it's not going to hurt you if the coach thinks, yeah, like this kid is respectful. He shows up and he's not giving me the side eye every time I do anything. And the less you can do that, less you can just stare at the coach and be like, you going to put me on, right? The less he has to feel like, oh, this guy's just an asshole kid, and that'll help you in the long run. So we talked about the mindset. The next piece is how to emotionally deal with getting screwed over, being put in a bad position. And the real purpose of this is we want to build emotional regulation. We want to learn how to have our mind follow logic and the strategy instead of getting pulled into bad things, instead of reacting to things. And you'll start to learn as you listen to more of what I say that the whole mindset of everything we do in Identity Shift is about thinking, how can I influence before I get into the moment? What can I do to set myself up for success? How can I rewire my mind before I get to the big moment so I'm ready and then I can dominate? And so the big thing with dealing with the emotion and the challenge that comes with overcoming getting screwed over is you need to feel the frustration. The worst thing you can do, and a lot of players get taught this, is to repress it, is to push it down, is to avoid it, is to say, I am better than this. But here's the thing. You're allowed to feel hurt. You're allowed to feel angry. You're allowed to feel confused. Feelings are okay. The thing is you need to have tools to deal with it, and then you need to keep taking the actions to move forward. You don't want to allow emotions to pull you off course in terms of how you train, how you play. You want emotions to be able to move through you and not pull you off. And if you can do that, that's when you become unstoppable. And so what you want to do with this is you want to have certain techniques and tools that you have basically decided on or you figured out that work best for you. So some things you can do journaling. So you can simply just write down like a simple prompt, like what's really bothering me right now? And you can just write about it. And sometimes just getting it out on the page can help you. You can do things like breath work. You can learn to regulate and calm your nervous system down. This is something we teach all the players in our programs. And depending on what a player needs, we go more in depth with this. You have visualization, where there's a whole system around visualization that we teach. But biggest thing to keep in mind is you want to use visualization to essentially play out things that you're afraid of and think, if I don't know what to do, if I'm struggling, if I'm nervous about something, you can actually start to ask yourself, hey, what would it look like if this did work out? Okay, what if it didn't work out and things went bad? Right? That's negative visualization. What if it didn't work? You can start to play that out and then say, how would I deal with this? What would I change? How would I behave differently? And this allows you to prepare for a whole wide range of potential problems. Another technique is you can use the role identification chart that I have here to reconnect and get clarity on what your team needs and who you need to show up as. And then what I teach in our programs is how to build an alter ego to really show up as the player you need to be right now. So think about what role you have right now, get clear on that, and then what steps do you need to take to really master that? And then what steps do you need to take to expand on that role and start to stretch the label the coach has for you? What behaviors could I show that would show that I'm ready and dialed in before games? How risky do I need to be as a player? How can I start to make more calculated risks in my game? Another technique for emotional stability and being very durable is having mantras you can come back to. So you can have certain sayings that you say to yourself, like, I'm in control, I'm okay, I got this, right? Like these are super common cliche things. You can find things that work for you there, a bit more surface level, but you can also have things like a 3 power word mantra, which is calm, controlled, confident, for example. And these are things that you say to yourself throughout an entire game, and it keeps you in the zone. It keeps you dialed in. That can be super effective. Hopefully those all make sense, but the biggest thing to understand is that when you act from emotional neutrality, so you act from a stable place, you're going to stand out because you're more consistent than other players. You don't get pulled off. So some of the things you can start to think about is, what techniques do I need to learn in order to be able to get myself to be calm, get myself to be able to bounce back and be very flexible with my mind so that I can show up and have a bad emotion, but then come right back. These are things that you do away from the rink, but you also need to have techniques that you can do at the rink when things come up. If you do this, you'll be somebody who reduces the amount of pulled away you become when things go wrong. You don't get pulled off course too much because you built that stability in your emotional resilience. The next thing you want to think about is the actions you should be taking with your training in order to make sure that as you go through this tough time, you're able to still be successful. And so the biggest thing is you want to channel the frustration you have into tangible progress. Use it to actually make you better, make you take better actions instead of letting it pull you off course. That's what somebody who's adaptable really is. Somebody who's adaptable is able to get better despite the challenge that they're facing, because the challenge actually makes them stronger. It basically beats the strength into them instead of beats the strength out of them. We'll talk more about mental toughness in the next section, so don't worry. So the key is you can't control your ice time, but you can control your preparation. So the framework I want you to follow to decide what actions you should take is to do an audit of your controllables. So think about what can you do in terms of your effort? Where can you start putting your energy and your attention? Where can you be putting your thoughts? Like during the day, should you be thinking about, oh my God, what is my coach thinking about me? Or should I put that energy into things that you actually want to think about? A lot of times you'd be better off thinking about a TV show character and how they're going to navigate this plot in this TV show you're watching than it would be to think about, oh my God, what is my coach thinking? Is he going to put me on the ice next game? Am I going to be in the lineup? All that stuff just puts you in survival mode, which leads you to not recover as well. So you can think more about what effort, what energy do I want to be putting out? What thoughts do I want to be kind of putting into my brain? How do I want to be recovering? How can I be showing up with all my training? And then you want to be thinking, what can I do on a day-to-day basis? There's a concept I like to say is laying bricks. So you can say, how can I plan my week to lay 3 important bricks in terms of your mind, physical training, and then your skills training? If you do that, you'll put yourself in a really good position. So hopefully that helps. The next piece is double down on your strengths. Think about what are the things that make me undeniable? And what you want to think about is what are the skills that make me stand out? And think about if I could make those a little bit better, if I could double down on those, would it separate me? Would it make me a better player in the league? Would it allow me to get ice time and fit better into my team? That could really help you if you really get clear on, I'm really good at driving the net. Well, what can I do to give myself more opportunities to drive the net? Maybe there's things you could do in terms of how you make decisions on the ice to give yourself more chances to do that. Do that a couple times, put up a couple goals, and boom, now you got it. But you have to break it down into what are the micro pieces to that. And this is why the third piece is really important. So set micro goals. So maybe you want to say, let's say you want to get better at driving the net and scoring. It's like, well, let's break that down. If you think about, okay, when I get to the net, obviously I need to be able to finish. So you need to know how to read the goalie, be deceptive, and beat him. You also need to understand one-on-ones and how to beat players one-on-one and be able to make those drives. You need to understand how to set up a one-on-one and create opportunities to do that, right? How do you kind of move into it? And then you also want to think, how can I build enough trust to get on the ice in order to even get a chance to make more of those plays? And so those are all pieces you want to think about. And those are all different things you want to start to solve. So set those micro goals of how can I improve one of those pieces for this week? And next week I improve one more. And next week I improve one more. And 4 weeks from now, you're going to have upgraded that skill and brought it into your game. And now you're going to have that momentum. And so think about this from the perspective of momentum. Improve momentum. Get a little better each day. Lay 3 bricks each day in terms of, again, mental ability, get better at your mind, get physical ability, get stronger, faster, more durable, all those things. And then improve one skill, lay that brick down. And you do that consistently, you'll get better than everybody around you, right? Next piece is, again, as you build that momentum, you also want to think, whenever I feel that frustration, whenever I have bad stuff happen to me, I use that as fuel to make me better. So don't train from bitterness, but train with purpose. Let that frustration drive you to show up, to push yourself. And when you want to give up, remind yourself, I can do this. I'm going to figure this out because that's who I am. That's when you come back to your identity. And now if you want to get really serious with this, something we do in our free training, we have a basic thing that you can use. So you can basically fill out what we call a weekly training tracker. You can get started with that. The link is the second link below in the description. It's the top pin post second link. So you can check that out. You can go to the training section. I believe it's the aligning your training lesson. So you can go to that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the thing you want to think about is if you want to go deep with this, we have a whole advanced tracker that we do with players to help them really set up and optimize this. But the mindset becomes use that fuel to take actions, to get better, double down on your strengths, and push yourself right now. Because if you can push yourself right now, most players dip and they stop working. If you can keep working over the course of a long career, you are going to progress faster than everybody else. The next piece we're going to break down is how to talk with your coach. So we can do a lot more with this. There's a lot more depth we can go into, but really what you want to think about is that you want to be able to be a mature player who communicates well with your coach. Because if you act like a pro, you're going to get treated like a pro. If you act like a child, you're going to get treated like a child. So be somebody who's very good at communicating with your coach, and it will make a big difference. Now, how do you do that? The key is never talk to your coach when you're emotional. Wait until you're calm. Wait until you're in a curious state. Wait until you're composed. Now, this is why we do so much mental training stuff in our programs, because if you can get yourself into that calm, centered state, something we call self-led state, this allows you to be able to be a good leader and communicate with your coach as a captain. Basically, not necessarily a captain of the team, but a captain of your own self. You show up and you say, hey, I really want to improve. I'm here to get better. And maybe the coach says something kind of pisses you off a little bit, but you don't let it bug you because you're calm, you're centered. That's why having that mental skill is so important, because you're able to stay calm and composed in those moments. The biggest thing is to lead with curiosity, not complaining. So don't go to your coach and say, I want this, I don't like this. Ask questions. Be curious. Use confidence. Be respectful. Use that tone. Be the one who's asking questions and trying to learn, because the more insights you can get from your coach, the better. So learn from from them. Use phrases like, for example, coach, I'd love to understand how I could learn to improve this area of my game. Hey, coach, I'd love to understand what you think is kind of missing in my game right now, just from a kind of long-term perspective so I can improve for years to come. Coach, what do you think I can improve on this week that best help the team? So those are kind of key things you want to think about, but it also depends on what type of coach you have. So these are the coaching archetypes that I'll kind of visually show you here, and these should help you to understand what type of coach you have and how to talk to them. So if you have a hard-nosed coach, this is somebody who's kind of old school, kind of aggressive, kind of an asshole, honestly, sometimes. These are the coaches you want to be very short, respectful, direct with them. Coach, what do you think I can improve this week? Keep it very simple, keep it straight. Don't be a dick, but just be honest with them. That'll help, because those type of coaches do not want to get into the feelings and say, oh, I'm sad, I'm not playing. Just be straight with them. Next one, you might have a motivational coach, loud, energetic, excited, trying to hype everybody up. Go into that meeting or go into that conversation excited. Coach, what's up? How's it going? What's going on today? Ask questions, be there, then start to say, okay, cool. Like, I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to figure this out. What do you think I could do to be better? You match their energy and they'll match your energy back and start to give you more. You might have more of a cerebral coach or an analytical coach. These are kind of two of the same types of kind of coaches. They're both very in their head coaches. They think a lot. So if you have a cerebral coach, you want to ask very smart, tactical questions. That's really asking like, hey, in this situation, what could I do better? What do you think I could improve? How could I make a better decision there? Like, be very tactical. An analytical coach, you can start to look at the data. If you work with us, we actually do something called a game tracker, and you can track your stats. And you can also ask your coach, hey, like, where are my stats off? Like, what's missing? What's kind of struggling here? And that's the type of coach that's going to respect that. But you don't want to go to a hard-nosed coach and ask analytical questions. Don't do that. Next one is a player's coach. These are coaches who are very honest, very connected. They want to kind of be your friend. This is where you want to be very honest, rational. Say, hey, coach, I'm feeling really frustrated right now. I'm feeling down. Like, share your emotions with that coach. Get to really have them understand where you're at, what your goals are. And this coach is going to work with you and want to support you. And that's the type of communication you want to have with that coach. And then finally, you might have kind of a balanced coach, somebody who's a blend of multiple different styles. This is the type of coach that you want to come in and kind of blend being logical with being humble, saying, look, here's what I want. I want to get on the ice. I want to have more opportunities, but I just don't know how to do it. I'm struggling and I need your help, right? That's being logical, but also humble enough to say, I need help, not just saying, I'm great, I'm going to figure it out. So the principle here is that you can't control your coach, but you can lead your coach to respect you. He might not like you, but you can get them to respect you. If you get them to like you and respect you, then you're probably going to win, because they're going to say, I like this guy. So the key is, don't argue. You want to seek clarity, understand what you can do, understand what your role is. If you can't even figure out what your role is, because some coaches won't even tell you that, just get clear on exactly what one core piece of kind of strategic development you can do. Maybe one thing you can do to just get on the ice a little more, one thing you can work on in your training, and that will give you much more direction than just brewing on it and being pissed off. But don't talk to your coach when you're emotional. Be calm. Learn to settle yourself down. If you need help with that, that's what we do with players. Learn how to settle yourself down, and then you can go and talk clearly. The last thing we're going to get into is how to set yourself up for long-term success. The reason for this is I want to bring all the lessons we just talked about, but really help you understand how to build mental toughness that's going to turn you into the best possible player. The reason for this is because if you want to be successful in the long term, what you do, the actions you take are going to be what gets you there. But if you don't think the way you want to think and feel the way you want to feel, you're going to end up falling off course way too often. Now, I'm not telling you just because you have a negative emotion, you shouldn't take a good action. What I'm saying is that if you constantly feel bad and sad and depressed about hockey, you're not going to take the actions you need to take. So you need to build the mental toughness to be able to act and keep doing what you need to do when you go through hard times like you're going through right now. So it's important to realize, zoom out. Every player goes through a chapter like this in their career. Sometimes they go through multiple. The difference is whether this defines you or it refines you. If it builds you and makes you better, or if it makes you worse and it kind of traumatizes you. The cool thing you can think about with trauma, and people hear this concept all the time, but if you get traumatized, there's two ways you can go with it. Trauma can either make you better, right? It can improve you, or it can make you worse. So sometimes there can actually be a benefit from going through bad situations. And so this is your opportunity. Even if you're injured right now and your coach is treating you bad, or you're just not getting opportunities, understand that this can make you better, because it can make you into somebody you want to be. It can improve you and push you forward, but it can also make you worse forever. So you need to be able to figure out how to have this forge your identity. And how to do this is through the 4 pillars of mental toughness. So the first thing you want to do is understand tolerance. So this is the length of your fuse. How long can you basically keep moving and keep taking action regardless of what happens to you? So even if you get treated poorly, even if you feel like shit, even if you get ran over over in a game, you get injured. It's like, how long can you just keep taking action? That's tolerance. You don't get pulled off at all. You just keep moving forward towards your goals. Now, if you snap easily, if you break down, it means your tolerance sucks. And that means you need to improve it. Now, we're not going to talk about how to do all this, but the biggest thing is start to measure how long you can endure difficult things until you snap. And then start to identify when you do break, what causes it. And when you can identify this, you can actually lengthen your fuse and get better and better at being able to handle these things. Number 2 is fortitude. So it's how much do you dip? When you do break, because you will eventually break and you will feel emotions and you'll get frustrated, you get pulled off track. Maybe you'll feel sad and you'll go drink and party or something. It's like, well, do you do that one time or does that become who you are for a whole month? Does it last for a year? Or does it turn into you're just the party guy and you don't care about working hard anymore, right? It's about being able to handle the setbacks, be able to fall off, but not go too far off. The thing with fortitude is to basically realize a high fortitude is somebody who handles a setback with composure and they don't spiral. If you spiral, it means you have low fortitude. And the key to really being able to improve that is say, when I do fall off, how far do I fall off? What do I fall off to? And then you can start to identify how to improve on that. Now, again, going to the third one, resilience. This is the speed of the rebound. So if it's something really bad, like right now, you watch this video and you just bounce right back and you're like, okay, taking actions again, things are working. Low resilience is somebody who stays down for days, weeks, months. And that's okay. If you have bad resilience, you just want to realize how long does it take you? And let's start working on shortening that gap and start to be able to recover faster and faster. And this isn't just physically. You can have physical resilience being like, how quickly do you recover from physical issues, right? Like how quickly do you recover after a workout or an injury? But mental resilience or recovery, how quickly do you recover when you're pulled off track or you felt a bad emotion in a game or somebody got in your head? It's like, can you come back quickly? Have a terrible game. Can you bounce back for the next game? That's the key. And then fourth, the last piece is adaptability. So this is the direction of growth. After something bad happens, if you have high adaptability, you actually come back stronger. If you have medium adaptability, you just come back the same. Low adaptability is you decline and get worse. This might be the most important of all of them because if you're somebody who can go through a bad thing like this situation and it makes you way better after, that's awesome. Because now whenever you go through a bad situation, you're like, awesome, I'm going to adapt and get better from this. If not, if you have low adaptability, you're going to feel fear around any negative thing because you're going to know I'm going to get worse. This is going to kind of break me. And that's what's going to make it scary. So to start to understand, are you adaptable? When something bad happens, start to note down, what did I do after? You can kind of reflect on a time where you did fall off or you went through something tough or something like this. Really ask yourself, did it make me worse? Did it lead me to being sad and moping around? Or did it kind of lead me to becoming a stronger person? That's the key. If something bad happens to somebody who's really mentally adaptable, it happens, they're like, okay, cool. And then they actually just improve and they actually get better and they learn something from it. Like if you miss the net, an adaptable person takes that and says, all right, I'm going to learn how to get better. Somebody with bad adaptability misses the net and they're like, oh my God, I suck. I should never shoot again. Then they basically were kind of like traumatized from that event and they never want to shoot again. So together, all four of those pieces create mental toughness and you can control them. You can't control what happens in your career, but you can control how you act as a result. And that's what mental toughness is. So the thing is, you might not be able to change your coach this week, but if you apply everything we talked about in this video, you can change how you respond. And how you respond changes everything about what happens in the future. And that's all that actually matters. And so if you got a lot from this video, bookmark this video, watch it anytime you feel forgotten, benched, overlooked, because the truth is, this is not going to be the last time you go through tough stuff. It's not going to be your last test. And when you do go through it, you want to be able to apply these principles. And it's not just going to happen because you watch this video once. You need to deepen them. You need to apply them. So if this helped, you can share this with somebody so they can start to learn this stuff. And if you know that you really want to go deep on this stuff and you want to actually take this deeper, you're not already a client. If you're not a client, I don't know what you're doing. You're at the end of this video. You're crazy for not just working with us in some way. But if you want to work on this stuff and go deeper and get a personalized mental program so that you can handle adversity, handle tough stuff like this, and have the mental tools to maximize your chances of playing at the highest level possible in the future, click the first link below. It's the first link in the description, first link in the pin post, and you can basically watch a video that breaks down how we help players exactly. You can apply if you're interested. We only accept about 25% of players who apply, so don't be mad if we don't respond because we have a lot of players reach out and we don't want to waste your time. So if we think we can help you, we'll tell you. If we don't, we obviously won't waste your time and call you or text you or whatever. And just to be real, that's why we do that. And if you want full mental training system for free that goes through everything we talked about here to some extent, it starts to build the mental foundations and starts to give you meditations, visualizations, different mindset frameworks to be successful long-term. You can check out the free training below. It's the second link in the description in the pin post. Otherwise, I hope you got something from this video. I know you probably didn't have an awesome week or last couple days or whatever you're going through. Just know you're going to get through this and I will help you as much as I possibly can. And I hope you have the best possible day today. Take it one day at a time and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.